Now, a word about animals on the Mark Thompson Show.
And our guide through the word about animals is the great Karen Dawn from Dawnwatch. You can find her. Dawnwatch is a daily animal news resource, I guess is the word I would call it. That's one word I could use. And you can find it on Facebook. You can also find it across the web. But you're such, I subscribe, so I get it to my email automatically. So as a result, I need to worry about going to Facebook or finding anything. And you focus on a New York Times piece, Karen. I wonder if you could speak to that.
I could, but as usual, Mark, I'm going to sort of knock you off your feet there a little bit because this is
now I see why we only do it once a month. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
I am definitely going to share Margaret Wrinkle's latest New York Times piece. But after I sent that to you guys this morning, I suddenly realized that, and it's totally relevant, is that since I saw you last, the Pope died. And he
was a friend to animals, for sure.
Oh, my word. Well, he chose the name of Pope Francis of Assisi, who is best known for his relationship with animals. And his very first encyclical, which is this huge essay they write, and they thank you, Tony, for that. I sent that along to Tony after when I realized this. The encyclical he wrote, which is this first major issue he addresses, was about the environment. He called it an encyclical on the environment, but it was very specifically about animals. And some of the language he used was profound and groundbreaking. And I'm going to share just a little bit of that because it's so like the way that Margaret Wrinkle, who I did warn you I was going to talk about, and I didn't mention I was going to talk about the Pope, but she has a similar way of looking at things. And it's a way that I also look at things, and I just want to share it. It's funny when people ask me if I'm involved in, if they learn that I'm an animal rights activist, which is what I do with what I've chosen to do with my life. Sometimes they'll say, are you vegan? And well, yes, of course I'm vegan because I'm a full-time animal rights activist. This is what I do with my life. But do I think that means that in order to care about animal rights and veganism is the moral baseline? No, actually, there are famous men in our movement who've said that. Whereas, of course, and I know that you're vegan, bless you for that, because you care so deeply about these issues. But it's funny, I had the most beautiful conversation just yesterday with a wonderful woman who I'd love to see on your show, actually, named Priya. She's local to you up in the Bay Area, or to many people on this show up in the Bay Area, who was one of the heads of DXE, Direct Action Everywhere, for years. And they were the first group, and they've been, members of the group have been arrested for all sorts of actions. They were the first group to say, this isn't about making more vegans. This is about changing the way that people in society view animals. And of course, ideally, eventually, we want a vegan world. But at the moment, I think we've been at 3% for about 20 years now. So we might want to look at a different kind of focus.
Yeah, I mean, meat eating is going up all around the world. I want to go back to the Pope because I thought it was really great that you referenced it and you sent it, because what he actually said.
Right back there.
Yeah, what he said was we are not God. Now we must forcefully reject the notion that our being created in God's image and given dominion over the earth justifies absolute domination over other creatures. I mean, what a wonderful thing to say. Clearly, the Bible has no place for a tyrannical anthropocentrism.
And that's what I really want to talk about with you.
Yeah,
and
which is the unconcern for other creatures is what he says. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, not at all. That's those words. I've mentioned them to you before on the show, that occasionally you've, when anybody says anything about anthropomorphism, I get quite annoyed because, yes, very occasionally we might actually give emotions to animals that, when they don't actually have them. But far more often, we are pretending animals don't have pretty much exactly the same emotions that we do. And anybody who's ever lived with a dog or a cat, I mean, you just learn that they might not think exactly the same way they do, but they pretty much feel like we do. And I've mentioned before the word anthropocentrism. And honestly, it's a word that almost never, ever comes up, this idea that we think that we are the center of the universe. So to have it come up from the Pope, going out to literally billions of people throughout the world, this is a man who really, really wanted to change the way we think about other species. So the loss of him is profound. We can only pray that he is replaced by somebody else who gives a darn about what happens to other species and about the anthropocentrism that our species tends to rely on, and which we feel is giving us permission to destroy the earth and destroy all the other animals on the earth, which is
Yeah,
ourselves. Well,
one of the things one of the problems I have with religion generally is that this notion of dominion. I mean, it's an awful word. You really wish that religion was more about conserving and responsible conservation of these gifts that we've been given, these natural gifts, even if you view them as given from the divine. Don't you think we have a responsibility to conserve them? All of these things, all of these animals, all of these environs, all of these habitats, these are beautiful things given to us, and we have a responsibility to conserve them, to sustain them. And so I always had a problem with the dominion over the earth. That, man, it's what you're talking about, that anthropocentrism. Now, can you take me?
No, not yet. I have to respond to that.
I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
First, I have to say amen in honor of the Pope and everything we're talking about. Then I have to mention, you say that dominion is a bad word. Depending how it's used, I think now of Matthew Scully's gorgeous book, Dominion, The Power of Man, the Suffering of Animals, and the Call to Mercy. One of the most beautiful books ever written. If you have any Catholic listeners or people whose family are Catholic and they wish they cared more about animals, Dominion is the book to give them.
Oh, I'll make a note of it. I'm sorry.
Are you not familiar with Matthew Scully's book, Dominion, Mark? You are always ahead of me on so many of these issues.
Please shame me, everybody, if you would. Yeah, I appreciate
you will love it. It is
It's fantastic.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
Matthew Scully wrote it while he was in George Bush's White House, and which is just incredible because, you know, historically we used to associate animal rights, animal welfare with the left. And Matthew is one of the first prominent people on the right to show true concern about these issues. And his book, Dominion, is exquisite.
I will pick it up. There it is. Thank you,
Pope,
Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Like the Pope, he doesn't want dominion to get confused with domination. They're really quite different. And, you know, whether it is dominion, whether it is conservation, no matter what name we call it, if we have true concern for other beings, then the world will look quite different. But I think what you're getting at, and now I'd love to move to Margaret Wrinkle, because this is, I think, what she is something, the way she looks at the world, is dominion suggests that we are higher than other animals, and, you know, that it's our job to look after them. And something I always notice in Margaret Wrinkle's writing, and she's a New York Times columnist. She has a column, I think it comes out every Tuesday. I think the one I'm sharing today, I've sent along a gift link, compliments of Teresa D'Amico, who's the Dawnwatch advisor, actually, which I hope Tony will include when he posts this interview.
Yeah, we'll put it under the video.
Beautiful.
Of course.
I think it'll be in print tomorrow, but Margaret Wrinkle writes regularly about all sorts of things, and she always, a lot of your audience will be happy to hear, she always gives Trump a nice good bash in there. So she's very, you know, on that very upset about what Trump's doing with the environment in particular. And but very, very often she focuses on wildlife, and the way she writes about other animals, and we've shared stuff about turtles, etc., from her before, comes from a place of a circle of life, you know, and this is something I talk about, is a circle of life rather than a hierarchy of life. And just this assumption that other animals matter perhaps as much as we do. I certainly say as much as we do, and whether or not you think it's equal or you just think they matter, we'd have to change. To acknowledge they matter would mean changing the way human society treats them a lot. This particular piece is called I Break for Robins. And thank you, Tony, for sharing that there. And she talks about how in springtime, she's always so concerned that there's so much new life everywhere. And then basically we have put roads through their habitat, and then we drive so fast that we're mowing them down in their own habitat. So she talks about robins who fly so low to the ground and that she breaks for them, and our need in general to look after them. And today's piece it's beautifully written. And there was one part of it I don't know, Tony, if you got the last quote I sent along, but I wanted to share this. I can put on I know you have credibility glasses, Mark. I have Prue glasses from those
are very cool.
Do you watch the Fabulous British Baking Show, or no?
I don't. Is that required viewing before this segment from now on?
It's not required vegan viewing, but I bet a lot of folks will know exactly who Prue is, and with my orange glasses matching my orange outfit here. But she talks about wildlife-friendly changes that all of us can make, and I'm sure lots of people listening to this show live in apartment buildings, so don't have gardens that they can change, and if you live in an apartment building, gosh, folks, at least when it's hot, put a bowl of water out on your balcony or on your patio or in your windowsill, please, and put a little stick in it from the bottom of the bowl to the side of the bowl, so that if anybody accidentally falls in there, they can get out again.
That's very clever.
I've made the awful mistake of leaving a big glass bowl out and finding a little drowned frog in there the next morning. So you've got to make sure that there's a way out, but just leaving a bowl of water out can make a big difference. But she has a beautiful garden, and she talks about the importance of doing things like planting native flowers rather than whatever flowers you might happen to be in the mood for, because the wildlife in your neighborhood rely on those native flowers. And I'm going to read out what she says because it's just so important. She says, wildlife-friendly changes and how we manage our yards and public spaces include choosing native plants that provide food and habitat for native species, protecting insects by building a brush pile, leaving the leaves where they fall, and waiting till full spring after nighttime temperatures have reached at least 50 degrees for 2 straight weeks to clean up the garden. It can mean protecting everybody, human beings and wildlife alike, by skipping the herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and synthetic fertilizers. And then I love this bit about, we're always so worried it reminds me of the Joni Mitchell song, Leave Me, I don't care about spots on my apples, just leave me the birds and the bees. She says, we need to recognize that an insect-chewed leaf is not a sign of damage, but a sign of life. Some hungry creature is eating the leaf, which means that some other hungry creature has insects to eat, and the wild world is behaving exactly as it evolved to behave. I just love that whole circle of life thing that she's putting forward.
That is terrific. That really is terrific. Couple of comments for you on the way out. I will check that book out, says Zero Sum. There you go.
Beautiful.
Dominion can also mean or connote caretaking, says Mary Lynn Young. Well, look, I don't want to get in a big argument about it. It sounds to me like Dominion was the name of this great book, and it's all about I'm going to read it and I'm going to get it. But let me just state it for everybody straight. I'm not going to die on this hill, but Dominion is about control. Dominion means control. Okay, so don't tell me that you use the word dominion, but somehow it also means anything else but control. Now, you can have control and also be concerned with conservation and sustainability, but the word dominion implies that kind of sovereign control over something. So that's kind of why I got off on that. But yeah,
and nobody minds you getting off on it.
I love that it could be caretaking also under that, Mary. Yeah. And
I'm going
Inlay
to
says, we have dominion means we should take care of the whole of the world's plants and animals as we are entrusted to take care of them, says Inlays. Yeah.
Mark, I'm going to, the book's called Dominion, but again, the subtitle of the book is right in line with what you're saying. The first thing is the power of man. It's dominion, the power of man, the suffering of animals, and the call to mercy. Because we do have a fair bit of dominion just because of what we're doing to the planet. So
Sure. And, there it is. Control the exercise of control sovereignty. I don't think. Thank you. I didn't need that, but thank you, Tony. Also, Russell says, "Why is everything blurry?" Do you mean the universe, Russell, or do you mean just the picture? I know you may have to. We have no control over that. We have no dominion over that. Karen, love our time together again. Karen Dawn's Dawnwatch, the daily animal world news watch, is on Facebook and on the internet. There are click-throughs underneath this video. We look forward to our time. You always have some surprises for us, and that's a fun thing. So I look forward to our next visit. Thank you, Karen.
So good to see you.
All right, Karen Dawn, everybody.
Join the flock. Again next time for A Word About Animals on The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.